All right, everyone, the left is doing it again. No real huge surprise here. I think that every one of us predicted that this would happen because Donald Trump was elected, because he's associated with Elon Musk. People are burning up Teslas. They've even got a website for this showing where Teslas have been burned and where Tesla owners live. I would like to point out something to the leftoids. I know a handful of you hate watch my videos. Do you not believe that the average EV owner is probably more left-leaning than right-leaning? Because Elon Musk only came out fairly recently and supported Donald Trump and the Republican Party more broadly. That's more of a recent advent. Most Tesla owners, therefore, probably are from the era in which Elon Musk seemed to be simply a liberal environmentalist. You're literally burning your own vehicles. Some of you literally own Teslas. This is ironic and, on one hand, hilarious, but on the other hand, kind of concerning. It's sort of like the summer of love riots. I remember watching a station where they were selling cars, and the whole row of cars slowly burned. That was years ago. That was being reported by Vice back when Vice actually did journalism. And it was kind of impressive, but it's like, you don't even know who owns that vehicle particularly. You don't know what their ideology is. You could be burning up a fellow communist's Tesla, actually. It's entirely possible. I've noticed that people who are into far left politics, they tend to be rather hypocritical. So, much like Bernie Sanders, you're like, oh, this is someone's second home. I'm going to burn it down with a couple of Molotovs. Oh shit, I just burned Bernie Sanders' home to the ground. I just burned the home of AOC to the ground or something like that. People who you would ideologically generally agree with are also your victims. And by the way, all it takes is one instance in which an influential leftoid gets their Cybertruck destroyed by one of your Molotovs for all hell to break loose politically for you. So, I mean, I guess keep going if you want to, but, you're getting hauled in on charges for a reason, and they're doing a good job capturing these people so far, which is the good news. Bad news, again, is mainly for the left more than anything else. Do you think these vehicles aren't insured, for example? Yeah, these people are just going to get a new Tesla. So you're giving Elon Musk free money. You're inconveniencing people that are, in some cases, literally ideologically aligned with you. And then you're getting felony charges for arson and stuff like that. Uh, what sense does this make? None. I mean, but you're on the far left, so I mean, I wouldn't expect anything different from you, but at the same time, I think somebody should point it out to you the reality, which is that you're not solving the problem that you perceive of as existing. If anything, you're going to end up with Elon Musk donating more goddamn money to the Republican Party more than anything else. He's like, well, vehicles are covered. I don't have to deal with it. 90% of the cost is already covered, and I'm worth, $100 billion trillion. So, yeah, I'll just award like 10 free Cybertrucks to people, just as a joke or something like that. You have to register with the Republican Party in order to participate in this particular prize giving. He would do something like that because he doesn't give a fuck. He's busy sending rockets up to the International Space Station and stuff like that. He doesn't care if you burn a couple of cars up. You're not accomplishing anything. It's pathetic. But it is a sign of left-wing violence. It's a sign of the same sort of thing we've seen over and over again for over 100 years, by the way. A lot of people don't know their history very well. The peak of left-wing violence in the United States was in the early 1900s, literally a century ago. It was, well, a little bit more than that. It was the 1910s, the anarchist bomb-throwing period where parts of the United States resembled IRA-controlled territory was actually in the 1910s. And union mobs would attack one another, and they would attack civilians, and civilians would attack them, and they would attack the cops, and the cops would attack them, and they would burn factories, and they would bomb cars, and so forth. The anarchist bomb-throwing peak in the United States was over a century ago. This is your great-grandparents' generation. So, color me unsurprised that leftoids, since that period, since Lenin got them riled up a little while before, have been consistently violent. It's like people think violence in the United States is usually some pumpkin, somebody like myself, wearing denim suspenders and, torching the sheriff's car and then fucking their cousin or something like that. That's not the reality. The reality is that most of the gun violence in the United States is urban and gang related, and it's, single ethnicity, both the portrayer and the victim. Um, Most of the terroristic activity has to do with certain ethnic blocks and religions, which are incommensurate with like rural America. They talk about like you see in movies, there's a trope like the corrupt small town sheriff or something like that. The small town sheriff is persecuting somebody whose girlfriend he wants to steal or something like that. No, no. The police corruption tends to be generally relegated to urban areas, big cities, in other words, sometimes even in suburbia. When somebody is policing in a district that they don't have to live in, there's a little bit less accountability. Your small town sheriff is probably a little bit better because it's like, well, everyone knows where I live. It's right down the street from this person. Maybe I need to show a little bit more restraint. That's the reality. The reality is the inverse of what the left depicts within cinema and music and things like that. Though they're getting violent again, it's not a big surprise. In fact, it couldn't be less surprising. It's like a foregone conclusion. The left is getting violent and throwing firebombs at cars. Oh my God. Who would have possibly predicted that this could ever possibly happen? We've been seeing it for 100 goddamn years. This sort of agitation has been a fixture since the early 20th century, before virtually any of you were born. A handful of you might have been around for that period. You're 110 years old. For some reason, you're watching a pirate talk about politics. Much to your credit, by the way. Other than that, everyone else was born after that period. Then there's sort of a lull in it for a while because you have World War II and stuff like that. And you have the civic togetherness of the atomic era, although you still have sporadic outbursts of left-wing violence, mainly related to segregation. Agitators, generally speaking, some of them were definitely not black. They weren't the ones being segregated, but they still took part in throwing the firebombs over and over and over and over again. Vietnam protests, Iraq War protests, what you're seeing now, the Summer of Love. All of these things, left-wing agitators like to do violent things, just sort of the way that it works. That's about all. Peace out.